Welcome to the module on Changing Role of Finance in Globalization. Whenever we discuss on the context of the globalization, it has come up as a long process which underwent a lot of technological advancements, followed by the policy of liberalization and emergence of new economic powers like China and India. So the process of globalization has come up as a long transformation in the entire globe, comprising of difference of cultures, economic ties, and also the context of cross-border flows. So it has increased the level of economic integration. So by economic integration, mainly it refers to the economic bonding that has been explored across the globe, across the various nations, and also which has become more interconnected to the rest of the economy. And through the process of interconnection, the most important factor that played an important role is none other than the financial sector. So the financial sector has come up with necessary capital and financial infrastructure, which has basically been instrumental for the cross-border trade and investment. So all these terminologies explain the spread of the globalization across the globe, which has been the backdrop of the discussion regarding the role of finance in this particular domain. Moreover, it has been seen that with the advent of the globalization, the nations are more exposed to the newer type of risk, and thereby more and more competitiveness have come up with greater surveillance or scrutiny. That means any kind of globalized activity has to come up through a lot of scanners in order to get approved, and finally the emergence of new risk also come up. This has basically taken up more significantly in the financial sector, which has come up with the development of new financial investments, new submarkets have evolved, and the risk and the management practices have also been come up in the newer dimension. This has also made the job demanding, and more skilled professionals are required to cope up with the issues of the finance in the context of globalization. This basically leads us to the most important discussions as the introductory part of this role of finance in the globalization. So first of all, it has been already observed that globalization is a multifaceted phenomena or multidimensional in nature, because it has spread its tentacles over the globe in the last few decades. So it is basically referring to the interconnectivities which occurs across different kind of entities. First, it refers to the integration of economies. So by economies, we mean that all the economies are of different economic structure in terms of income and investment profile. That means a developed economy, an underdeveloped economy, a developing economy, all these economies are tied up together, and thereby they can play an instrumental role to the process of globalization. Then we have the concept of societies. This society also refers to the pattern of the economy, whether it's socialistic or capitalistic or a mixed pattern. All these type of societies also play an important role in this regard. Mix of culture is very much important because it is a talk of ethnicity, the talk of culture, and also about the socio-political dimensions. So all these are the different attributes of globalization which will be reflected in various kind of activities. And those reflections are mainly expressed in terms of exchange of goods, services, capital, and technology. So when we talk about the goods, basically refers to the material goods, which are visible items. When we talk about the services, basically the invisible items. The capital, which refers to the capital flows, investment, as well as refers to the resources, and definitely technology, which has been one of the most important pillar of the result of globalization. Secondly, if we look at the world's economic landscape, then with the advent of the globalization, the economic landscape has drastically changed, because it has come up with more and more people getting connected together, and this networking has been one of the most important essence of the integrated global economy. So whether we talk about one business or we talk about multiple business operations, all these globalizations are playing an important role. Moreover, we have seen that in order to facilitate globalization, the financial sector has played a tremendous role. So one of the most critical role has been played by the financial sector in terms of business communications by providing the necessary capital and the financial infrastructure for cross-border trade and investment. So whenever we are talking about cross-border trade and investment, the most fundamental role has been played by the financial sector. This also brings us to the concept of emerging role of the professionals, because this is referring to the new derivatives which are coming up, which require more and more specialized and sophisticated skills, and thereby the demand for such professionals are on the rise, and it's a dynamic change. And also it has been seen that the process of finance is very much complex. And because it is complex in nature, it has become an essential element of this global force. Moreover, we have also seen that the finance has also been instrumental in playing the international trade. That means whenever we are talking about international trade, definitely it is one of the reflections of globalization where finance has played an important role. So it has been seen that in the arena of political economy or in the arena of the market economy, globalization has definitely progressed because it has come up with all the sectors and all the sectors are interlinked with each other. But finance has become more increasingly important because the role of finance has been observed in various dimensions. Firstly, to facilitate cross-border investment, because this is referring to the capital inflows and the outflows. Then in the context of international mergers and acquisitions, because this is one of the most important mode of the capital source. So whenever we talk about capital flow and different modes of capital flow, we basically refer to the mergers and acquisitions and also the management of the risk. This is also very much important because risk management basically takes care of how risk and return can be traded off together. It has also been applied in providing finance to business and individuals around the world, because it has been seen that the economic landscape comprises of different stratum of countries. Some countries are highly rich or advanced, and some countries are having low income. So basically these countries are in need of financial aid. So as a matter of fact, it has been seen that with the advent of the cross-border flows, access to finance have improved for this business and individuals. However, globalization also have come up with some of the risks or some of the challenges. The most important risk has been the volatility in the financial market, or any kind of financial crisis. If it erupts in any part of the globe, then it will be spreading its effect, or the entire economy or the globe will be feeling the tremors of such kind of earthquakes. So there is a risk of the contagion. This contagion word is basically referring to the continuous spread of the risk across different parts of the globe. So it is very much important that whenever we talk about the changing role of finance, whenever we talk about the different dynamics of globalization, definitely it takes care of the economic and the socio-political domain of any nation. So as a result of this, it has been seen that the globalization of the finance, changing regulatory landscape, and also the emergence of the new professionals as well as new risk have totally changed the entire diametrical position of this finance in this world economy. Now we go for the globalization of finance. Globalization of finance has come up as a most important arena within different perspectives of globalization like social, economic, political, cultural. But this has come under the umbrella of financial globalization, which means we talk about mainly the financial markets, which takes care of both capital market and money market, and also the new intermediaries markets which are coming up, and its integration with the national economies. So these national economies are basically the domestic economies which are there across the globe. So as a result of that, globalization of finance will have both positive and negative impacts. If we look into the positive side, or particularly for the pro-globalization measures, then we can see that the capital movement across the borders have tremendously increased over the last few decades. And this flow of the capital has come up in various modes. It can be either in terms of public-private partnership model, or in terms of joint partnership, or in terms of collaborations, or in terms of different kinds of greenfield investment. That means the MNC will set up a country where it will start from the scratch by employing the domestic nationals, even utilizing their domestic infrastructure, particularly land and other amenities. So based on that, the developing country would be interested to grow. So this is one of the most important dimension of this globalization or financial globalization is about the financial flows which have spread across the borders. Secondly, we can also consider the word of economic growth, because economic growth has to be substantial as well as economic growth has to be sustained. So for a sustained economic growth, there has been a role of finance, particularly in bringing in substantial investment for the welfare of the economy. And this has been more pronounced in the developing countries. It has also come up with more and more greater dynamics of the government sector and the business sector, because they have to undergo a lot of sophistication in their delivery, in their services to cope up with the globalized factors. So thereby the development of the global financial markets has provided businesses and governments with access to capital. So their exposure to capital, access to capital is improved over the years. More opportunities have come up for the investment, particularly across all the sectors. Whether you talk about manufacturing or we talk about services or we talk about agro-processing or we talk about technology or high-end services, everywhere there has been a necessity for capital or investment, and thereby the economic activity and the growth have expanded over the globe. This has also come up with the essence of competitiveness, because competitiveness is a crucial element for the dynamic growth in any economy. So as we find out that more and more financial institutions are coming up, more and more players are coming up, they are actually expected to provide better services. And these services must be internationally standardized in terms of quality and also in terms of promptness and operations. Moreover, the products that will come up on their delivery, particularly the financial products, they also should be cost effective. And definitely they should benefit the consumers who are the major target groups of this entire economy. So the globalization in terms of the positive remarks, we can say that the economic growth has expanded, market has become enlarged, and more importantly, the newer products have come up. However, there has been new risks and challenges. So what had been the Asian financial crisis, the global financial crisis, all of them have come up with a major risk in this regard. So we can see that the financial instability also is one of the byproduct of globalization. Though it is considered as an adverse impact, but financial instability has also come up with more and more proliferation of complex financial institutions, because all these institutions have different structure, but they want to integrate with each other. So as a matter of fact, they are exposed to extreme volatility in the market, and thereby there is a potential for systemic risk. So we can say that the growth of the global financial markets have also been taken up from a risk dimension. So anyway, in terms of the both positive and the negative impacts, it has a significant impact on the overall economic growth. It has also led to some kind of innovations in the financial sector. Innovations are highly capital intensive, which may displace labor, but at the same time they will ensure efficiency. So it has created newer risks and the challenges. More and more exposure to the crisis has come up, and the risk management needs to be done. So as a matter of fact, we can say that the movement of the capital has come up in a bigger shape in this regard. So in this particular discussions on globalization, we can say with respect to financial sector that maximizing the benefits and minimizing the risk has come up as the more important element of this entire phenomena. Now the concept goes on, evolution of finance in globalization. So when we talk about the evolution of finance in the globalization, we want to ensure that why finance playing an important role. Firstly, it is playing an important role because any kind of financial flows must go for cross-border. And whenever we are talking about cross-border, we are basically presenting new institutions, opportunities to come up. and so that there is a global audience in that regard. So as a result of that, new financial instruments have evolved over time, such as derivatives or flow of the securities, which can call for capital and risk management. So when we talk about capital and risk management, when we talk about the derivative market, when we talk about the security market, all these are basically the reflections of integration to the rest of the world. And that is how the domestic economies have to cope up. Moreover, we have seen that the interconnectedness of these financial markets have also been demonstrated by 2008 financial crisis, which has been the bubbling of the housing market, and thereby one fine morning the Lehman Brothers collapsed, and thereby the entire financial crisis spread to other countries. And eventually it ended up in a global recession. So this has come up as a most important element, that how the financial crisis has a contagion effect to the rest of the globe. Moreover, we have seen that globalization also requires proper monitoring or surveillance, and this calls for a very strong regulatory authority. So when we talk about strong regulatory authority, we want to be sure about all kinds of cyber activities which are taking place must be well protected. Whether we talk about the complexity of financial product or we talk about the financial transactions, everywhere there should be proper protection on it. On the other hand, the regulators also wants to come up with separate set of guidelines, because they have to develop common standards, they have to come up with financial institutions across the borders, and thereby they can operate with a regulatory framework. So this has also come up with the advent of financial institutions and cross-border flows. It has been also seen that the globalization has impacted the role of finance in the global economy, because the global finance, particularly which are headed by IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or International Monetary Fund, IMF, or World Bank, all of them has facilitated global trade and investment, and thereby the foreign investment would come up in a bigger shape. So it has been seen in all dimensions that when we talk about the globalization or when we talk about the global trade, all these factors play an important role. It has also been considered to address the consumers worldwide. So a range of financial services should be there, financial products should be there, so that there can be more and more addressing the customer base, which can facilitate the cross-border transactions and the global business operations to come up. So this has led to large amount of financial markets across the borders, creating new level of opportunities and institutions. At the same time, opened up the risk, and also there is a concern for a strong regulatory body. So nevertheless, finance continues to play an essential role in the global economy, facilitating global trade and investment, and mainly in the business operations. So it has been seen that in order to reap the benefits of this globalization, in order to reap the benefits of these technological advancements, the most important terms that crop up are stability and sustainability. Because stability refers to any kind of resilience that the country can attain across the global shocks. And this the country has to develop over time. That is the power or the capacity to absorb the shocks and recover from it. At the same time, the term on sustainability. Because sustainability will call for a consistent growth pattern, and thereby taking all the advancements for the long-term benefit. So that will definitely take care of the role of regulators, who should work closely to develop our common standards and guidelines across the borders. So these common standards must be uniform across the nations, because this has come up as one of the most important statutes under the political economy, where there could not be any kind of favoritism or any kind of political patronage enjoyed by any nations in the global forum. And this refers to the impact of finance on globalization. So when we discuss about the impact of the finance or impact of globalization in overall terms, it has both positive and negative dimensions. But if we look at the impact of finance specifically, then also we can outline the merits and the demerits. First of all, finance has definitely promoted globalization. facilitated international trade and investment, and also been instrumental in creating the new business models, which are basically driven by artificial intelligence or by data science or by any other mechanisms which will drive the innovation. So it has come up in a bigger shape that how technological advancements will be instrumental for the border accessibility or operating across the borders, opening up the global opportunities, and also making the entire process to be more accessible, efficient, and cost effective. So accessible refers to feasibility, efficient refers to more and more driven by less time and cost effectiveness, and definitely reduction of the cost strategies. So in this particular dynamics, there has been the role of a regulatory body, which can be none other than the government or the central bank, because they will be acting as a guardian of all these type of economies. So they will be implementing policies for free trade agreements. They will create some kind of advantages so that the foreign direct investment can be attracted, and they will go for encouraging the cross-border trade and investment. So some kind of liberalized measures can be adopted. At the same time, there should be initiatives to lower the trade barriers, particularly the import tax, the tariff or the quota, reduce the transaction cost because that has to be cost effective, promoting the gross border investment so that economic growth and development can come up rapidly. This will definitely take care of some of the international finance organizations or the source of international finance, mainly by the IMF and the World Bank. Because these two institutions have come up after the collapse of the IBRD after the Second World War, when financial assistance was very much needed for the countries which are under economic emergency, particularly financial emergency. And so this institution should act as a regulator of the global financial markets so that they can operate smoothly and efficiently. Moreover, the contagion effect should be made in mind so that any kind of inequality can be restored, any kind of resilience can be controlled. And the role of the finance in promoting globalization will facilitate definitely trade and investment and will definitely drive the innovation. So in this particular context, the government and the central bank will play an important role so as to ensure that the growth will be sustained as well as the growth will be substantial, particularly for the long run. Financial institutions also should make a kind of a trade-off between the risk and the benefit. That is what referred as the cost-benefit analysis. So by the any kind of strength, weakness, opportunities and prospects, by the swap analysis or by the cost-benefit analysis, they should try to strike a balance between the interconnectivities between the global financial markets and the contagion effects which are coming up. And then only we can say that finance can play an important role in the entire arena of globalization. This refers also to the impact of globalization on finance in terms of reaching a larger audience, which will definitely come up with the instruments like derivatives and the securities that are coming in. And this will refer to some kind of crisis which has been developed over time. Now we move on to some of the key changes that have taken place recently in the arena of globalization. The most important change that has come up is providing the funding for the businesses, the startups, the entrepreneurs, and whereby the cash flow management and the surplus funds needs to be invested. So this is where the role of finance has expanded to include a new range of functions and responsibilities. Moreover, globalization has also referred to a large change in the regulatory landscape because the governments and the businesses are seeking out some of the level playing field so that more and more financial institutions can operate across the borders. So this will take up in a regulatory position. Moreover, in terms of facilitating international trade, this has played an important role because this will refer to different kind of movements of goods between the countries, which can be in terms of the short-term credit or in terms of long-term credit. Cross-border investment has also come up in this particular reference, because as the economies are more integrated, the cross-border flows have also come up in a bigger shape. It has also come up with the financing of mergers and acquisitions, because when we talk about mergers and acquisitions, basically we refer to any kind of the corporate social responsibility or environmental, social and governance models. Because when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about the environmental, social governance models, we find out that finance are playing an important role. And thereby it will be actually conducive for promoting such kind of transactions on environment, society and governance. Management of risk is also an important emphasis, which can lead to different kind of risks, starting from systemic risk or the risk associated with the contagion effect, and in order to identify and manage the risk. That is more important in terms of identification and management. This also refers to another dynamics, which is emergence of new risk management practices. Because with the advent of the globalization, the interconnectedness to the global economy has improved. So management risk has come up. Financial risk also will come up with the new management practices like enterprise risk management or global risk management. So whatever be the risk management practices we do, all of them are coming up in a bigger shape. More importantly, the global financial markets also is one of the most important element, because these financial markets invest in asset and securities across the globe. And with that, the development of financial instruments like currency, commodity, futures, swap, options, any kind of derivatives are also opening up in this particular domain. And that is how the global financial markets have emerged over time. This has also led to some kind of competitions among the different financial institutions. And those competitions are basically changing the entire landscape, development of new products and expanding the global reach. This is also more important because today, under the arena of sustainability development goals, there has been more emphasis on inclusiveness or inclusivity. That means when we talk about financial inclusion, we mean that inclusiveness is one of the most important agenda in any global economic policy. So global reach as a result of finance, as a result of cross-border flows, has expanded over time. Increased use of technology in finance, because this is one of the very, very updated issue that crops up in terms of financial services, which provides consumers more options. New markets are coming up, artificial intelligence models are there, and which are basically acting as robots, or better to say robotics, in the big data or data analytics, which will be actually influencing the investment decisions. They can play a pivotal role in the management of the risk and improving the customer service. So all these are inherent within this process. This refers to the dynamics of future of finance in a globalized world. So whenever we are discussing about the current stance of finance in the globalization, there should be some kind of prospects which this sector basically holds in the arena of globalized market. So one of the most important is to ensure international cooperation and coordination. This is very much in tune with the political economic landscape, which talks about international cohesion, which talks about better international relations to the rest of the globe, and thereby international cooperation and coordination in financial regulation and supervision comes in. Secondly, when they work together, then governments and financial institutions actually develop a new global order. And by that, they can regulate the global financial system, and they can also harmonize any kind of regulations across different levels of productions. New mechanisms are coming in, and cross-border cooperation information sharing is being done. And this sharing of information is basically dissemination of knowledge to any part of the globe. And that is how we talk about a knowledge-based economy. Moreover, as we go forward in terms of this globalized and interconnectedness, we can see that more and more complexities will arise, more and more opportunities will come up, and there will be definitely space for the startups, entrepreneurs, and innovations. So one of the potential solution will be the risk management, and that can be done only by proper regulation, proper supervision, international cooperation. And another would be the rise of the fintech and the digital finance. Because with the advent of the fintech and the digital finance, there should be potential to revolutionize the way finance is created and greater access to individuals across the world. So when we talk about across the world, we basically refer to the role of the fintech and the digital activities which are taking place. This basically also refers to some of the risks or the challenges that are associated with this globalization. Definitely the challenge of cybersecurity, definitely the challenge of data privacy concerns. Because in all these cases, the policymakers and the financial institutions should develop new regulatory framework and should try to manage the risk in this regard. So thereby there can be a cohesive and a cooperative environment to work through. Anyway, depending on the ability to adapt and to innovate is one of the most important challenge of finance in a globalized world. Because with the changing business models, with the changing level of consumers' acceptability, they have to cope up with the changing political, economic and technological trends, particularly in terms of the global forces that are spreading across the world economy. So by working together, the new solutions, the new approaches will be evolving. They will be more important to ensure the stability and the sustainability of the global financial system, particularly the system which is complex, and also there will be greater access to financial services and opportunities. Then only the world economy will be prosperous and there can be peace. At the same time, there will be sustained growth pattern. So in this particular module, the major emphasis has been on the role of finance in the entire arena of globalized world, which takes care of these complexities and the interconnected nature to the rest of the economy. Because this has a historical foundation which has seen that why there has been a greater tendency towards financial globalization, and that has been more and more accelerated or supplemented by advancement in technology or liberalization of the financial markets. In this process, definitely there are both positive and negative impacts, particularly in terms of cross-border flows or in terms of economic growth advancement on the one hand, and on the other hand, there has been more exposure to the volatility in the financial markets, cyber risk, and many other measures. But anyway, with the range of economic, political, and technological factors, there also should be some kind of risk mitigating exercises. One of the most important challenge of this global economic system would be the international cooperation. But international cooperation is bound to develop with a strong bondage, with a strong coordination in financial regulation and supervision. So when we talk about financial regulation, it refers to a strong regulatory body which should come up, and a supervision should be taken up as a catalytic role. So in terms of the changing role of finance in globalization, the importance of the globalization is very much complex. The global financial system has to undergo this transformation, and there should be more and more dialogue between different countries in terms of political and economic agenda, how to ensure stability and sustainability in the years ahead. This calls for a long-term association between them so that greater degree of cohesion, cooperation, and at the same time a kind of economic and a mutual trade can take place. Then only we can say that finance will play a catalytic role not only in the advancement of economic growth in a particular country, but all the countries which are interconnected with each other so that there can be a positive contagion effect to the rest of the globe. And then only we can call for a stable and a sustained growth trajectory, particularly in the long run.